We're joined now by Washington Bureau Chief Craig Gilbert to talk a little bit about President Barack Obama's visit this afternoon to Wisconsin. Craig, he's coming to La Crosse. Can you tell us a little bit about what his message is as he's touring the country these days on overtime?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's an economic message. The president is trying to do some things that he can do on his own without Congress. Obviously, Republican Congress that agrees with almost no part of his agenda. And over time, what he's talking about doing is raising the threshold for the level of pay at which a worker should get time and a half pay. And that threshold has essentially eroded in real terms because of inflation. And so he's trying to bring it back to where it was effectively in the 1970s, but has been eroding since then.
All right, and do you think, I mean, that issue, I mean, it's on one level it feels kind of obscure, but I mean, it's important just because he's been pushing for improvements in the workforce and the general economy and economics for working class people?
Yeah, and it's important because obviously economic inequality is a real issue. It's going to be part of the presidential debate. It's certainly a big issue for Democratic candidates. And the president also just won a legislative victory on trade, taking kind of a expansive pro-trade position, which was resisted by labor unions and a lot of people, a lot of Democrats who see trade as a threat to wages. So this is also, I think, a way to speak to those concerns.
All right, let's talk a little bit about sort of the last week for President Obama, because he's coming to Wisconsin after a very successful week on a variety of fronts. He got the trade deal, which you mentioned, with help from the Republicans in Congress. Obamacare is upheld by the Supreme Court. Same-sex marriage. There's all the Confederate flag issues and the changes there in South Carolina that are to come. Talk a little bit about where he stands today in terms of the last year and a half or so of his presidency.
Yeah, well, his numbers eroded last year. They have gotten a little bit better this year. This is prior to all these events you mentioned in the last week. But right now he's close to 50-50 in the polling. He's still a little bit below water in some polls. He's slightly above water in Wisconsin, where he's historically been a little bit more popular than he has been across the country. The last good poll we had, his approval rating was a couple points higher than his disapproval rating, and his his personal image was favorable, as it has been for a long time. So things are looking up, certainly in that respect, for the president, and it matters. I mean, it matters. It's going to matter in the 2016 election cycle what his public standing is, what his approval rating is, how people regard him, because it's going to affect the presidential race, and it's going to affect races like our Senate race between Russ Feingold and Ron Johnson. The more popular President Obama is as he leaves office, probably the better Hillary Clinton's going to do, and the better Democratic candidates, Senate candidates like Russ Feingold, are going to do, and vice versa.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the 2016 election for Democrats. Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, was in Madison Wednesday night, and he's in the race against Hillary Clinton. What do you think that does to the dynamics of that race for former Senator Clinton in terms of how it causes her to go one way or the other in her positioning?
Yeah, it's kind of unpredictable. I mean, his impact will be felt. I think there has been an appetite for an alternative to Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party. I think he has a ceiling for a number of reasons. I mean, if you look at the composition of the Democratic vote, a big percentage of those voters are blacks and Hispanics, and we don't really have a lot of reason to think that Bernie Sanders is going to get a lot of black and Hispanic votes in this process. There are some states where he could do really well. There's some places like Madison where they're kind of tailor-made for him in some respects. But there's a lot of other places where he's going to have a low ceiling, and it's going to be hard for him to break through because of the demographics of the Democratic vote, because of the region of the country. So it's very difficult for him to compete with Hillary Clinton on a national level for that reason, obviously for money reasons as well. But it does change the dynamic of the Democratic primary. It could be a positive in some respects for Hillary Clinton, but there will be, Bernie Sanders will make her life difficult at times in the next several months.
All right. Well, that'll be a good spot to leave it, because in the next few weeks we'll be talking a lot more about the other side of the ticket as Governor Walker moves closer to his formal announcement. So thank you, Craig.
Thank you.